everyone, Mr. Silbaugh here, and this is my take on Unit 10, Lesson 3. So in the last lesson, we talked about web technologies, about how to grow your business, and ways that you can do it through e-commerce. As a reminder, there's three types of e-commerce. There's business to consumer, business to business, and consumer to consumer, and they all have their own goals in mind. There's several sites that align with these types of e-commerce, and it's important to be familiar with them and recognize what each of them does. So today we're going to be talking about internet marketing and search engine optimization. Or SEO. This is going to be it's not really long, but there's a lot involved with it. When you work for a web team, you need to think of marketing aspects that will affect your website. Remember, if you're building a website for a business, you are essentially marketing the company and the goods and services that the company is trying to sell. So you always need to keep that in mind, that your web page or website that you build for your company is a reflection of that company. Okay. Marketing takes traditional concepts and applies them to the web in this case. So you don't need to know marketing or have a degree in marketing. You just need to be familiar with some concepts of marketing, because that will make your job a lot easier as you start to develop your website. So these are some terms to be familiar with, as I hinted in the last slide. Branding, we talked about this in, I think, lesson 1 of this unit. Branding is the creation of an identity in the market. It allows consumers to identify a product and purpose. Your brand, if you use certain colors, certain images, certain logos, those are all part of your brand. Okay. Next is your target market. This is the audience that the product reaches or addresses. This could be very broad, like all people, or it could be very smaller, like specific people. Next is demographics. These are groups of people categorized by interests, ethnicities, cultures, subcultures, and much, much more. In some instances, some companies are trying to market towards these specific groups of people. So you do have to be aware of that if your company that you're making your website for is trying to market for certain people. Niche is a niche market. Not really talked about all that often, but it does come up in some marketing. This is a smaller portion of the market. It's usually a very, very tiny portion, and you're trying to find that specific. Sometimes your company will appeal to that specific tiny, tiny market. Other times you're trying to reach that market because you think you might be able to sell more products to them. Next is a mind share. This is the effect of marketing efforts influencing a particular target market or demographic. It has a weird name, but you're all very, 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 very familiar with what mind share is. It includes commercial phrases, catchwords, and sound bites. When I was writing this, I was trying to think of sound bites, and I thought of the State Farm jingle, because that is in your head and you think about them and you know that's a company. And once you research that company, oh, it's a company that provides insurance. So that's something to think about. Even Nationwide, another insurance company, has their own soundbite. And so does Allstate, another insurance company. Like, they all have these specific jingles, and you remember them and can think of them. Target date, this is a projected point in time that a product or services will be released. That's when you're trying to release everything. And then next is aggregator. This is a business that markets and sells goods and services, but it does not own or store them. Essentially, it is collecting them and selling them, and then because they're marketed through that company, the vendors can use the site to sell their products, and then the aggregator will take a percentage of the business that they sold. Internet marketing, okay? First, you need to know that there's 3 kind of things that are involved in internet marketing. The first is search engine optimization, or SEO. We hinted a little bit about this in previous chapters. This is the use of specific techniques to increase a page's or site's ranking on a search engine. This does not include paid ads. Essentially, SEO is how your pages are listed. When you go to Google, search for a certain term, How are they going to appear in that list? Okay. Knowing that helps to move your page up the list because you want to be on like the first 1, 2, 3 pages. 3 is even cutting it. After the first 3 pages, people start viewing the rest of this pages less and less. You want to be at the top. So there's some ways to keep that in mind. And we'll talk a little bit about that in just a few minutes. Pay-per-click, this is when you pay for high search engine results by advertising on keywords that describe your product or service. You essentially buy keywords and ads to help pay to get your result higher. You pay the host only when your ads are clicked on by the user from the website. Web analytics, this is collecting data and studying user behavior. This is very important, and we'll talk about all 3 of these in just a few minutes. So SEO, as I've talked about, SEO is all about how a search engine ranks a website. As I was mentioning on the previous slide, it orders them different search engines like Yahoo, Bing, and Google. Those are 3 of the major ones. They all have different ways of ranking their pages, and it's important to figure out how they are ranked. So you can use this information to customize the pages so that the site is ranked highly. If the page is ranked highly, the more likely your customers are going to find it, and it's important to keep that in mind. Once the search engine's ranking is figured out, the person in charge of the website needs to edit the page so that they can figure out ways to better market that page and make it so your site will appear higher in the list. SEO experts are supposed to lead users to a specific result. Data is used from the search engine provider. The search engine provider will provide data about their search engine rankings. Search engines provide these for a profit. They're not necessarily in it for helping. They're more in it for the money, because if this data is available, they're going to sell it, and so that people can find it. The provided data will accumulate. The provided information will accumulate data on the search engines and the searches that users conduct, and then they determine the correlations and connections between the keywords and the results found. Essentially, they provide the company that's requesting this information data on all of the searches that users conducted, and they'll determine the connections between the keywords and the results. Okay, it's essentially you're buying information from the search engine company. The market data is for sale, and if you have the money for it, it could be used to improve the site, and that's very, very important. If you have the money to buy it, depending on the size of your company, it can help you out tremendously. All right, pay-per-click. In pay-per-click, this allows you to list your site in higher ranks by advertising on keywords. You generally want to pick keywords that relate to what your product or service is about. You place your ad with established services that provide keywords to help improve your ranking. It's considered to be not organic because SEO is organic, meaning you do it naturally. You pay to have your page as high as possible, and it's a good way to get higher sales. However, you have to be careful because you don't necessarily want to. You want to pay for it in pay-per-click, but you don't want to go too much. And the reason why is because in pay-per-click, you have to pay for it if the person clicks on your advertisement, okay? So if you have people who are clicking, you're going to end up paying a chunk of money to the website that has your site. So keep that in mind if you do go this option. And many companies will use a combination of both SEO and pay-per-click to help improve their business. So keep that in mind. It's usually a balance. SEO is usually more easy because you can pay for that data. And once you have that data, you can use it to improve. You may have to purchase the data to get updates every so often, but most companies will use a combination to advertise on other websites and generate money that way as well, and generate revenue from clicks. Web analytics, okay? there's two types of web analytics, and both of them can help you out. On-site and off-site analytics. On-site analytics, this is when you study visitor behavior once someone has accessed your website. You can use the software or company that is providing this information to review hits, length of each stay, and the demographic information about visitors. The demographics in this case is where are they coming from, what part, are they rural, city, like all of that information. You can even go as further to find out like what neighborhoods was this information accessed for, because if you have a luxury item, you're going to try and market more towards luxury areas, so you need to keep these things in mind. On-site analytics is literally you're studying the behavior that people spend on your website. Off-site analytics determines your potential audience and how well your site has addressed a specific market. This is offline because it is off the internet. You can identify the size of your market here, your competitors, your impact, and you can determine that impact by conducting surveys and consulting market research sources about what they say. This one usually takes a little bit of money. This can take a little bit of money as well. Lastly, we're going to talk about social media optimization. This is the usage of social media networks to generate awareness and traffic. It's important to use social media to grow your presence. You see ads on your social media accounts all the time. Both search engine optimization and social media optimization are related, and they kind of help each other out. So in order to use social media optimization to its fullest, first thing you want to do is create accounts on all of the major social media networks, and put someone in charge of those accounts, because you regularly want to post interesting content regarding your product or service. I was thinking about this while I was writing this. I saw an advertisement on Facebook for a fake axe that you can use as a workout device, and I was like, it seems like a terrible and stupid idea, but it's actually, interesting to think about, because while it's kind of off the wall, it kind of got me thinking. And so it's stuff like that that you want to think about with your social media accounts. And then as your following increases, you create a search engine ranking, and your search engine ranking will go up because more and more people are following it and looking for your item. So social media optimization is something to keep in mind and not ignore. All right, in review, in this lesson, you must be familiar with marketing concepts to help build your website. And remember to keep in search engine optimization, pay-per-click, and social media optimization, because they're all great ways to grow your company's website. All right, that's going to do it for this lesson.